Anyone else? Anybody have any questions? It's got to be questions. Alan,
Yeah, I'm sorry,
student of
but
the day.
they call me Inquisitive Al. So the question is whether there are certain restrictions within our company to be eligible to have our claims covered by our E&O insurance. Like, do we need to use the Skyslope forms? Do we need to have a certain listing agreement? Or is it kind of unspoken, sort of Wild West?
My understanding is it's relatively Wild West. Most of the forms, except for one, that have been put into Skyslope for business brokerage came from the California Association of Business Brokers. They stripped off the top heading and they stripped off the copyright notice on the bottom and then later added an EXP heading on it. But the majority of the forms in there, like I said, except for one came from a franchise. It says it's a exclusive listing agreement. I would say never use that for any reason because it came from a franchise organization. Paragraph 28 in it says that refers back to the franchisor and all this other stuff, which is completely inappropriate since EXP is not a franchise. So in my humble opinion, and I can be very opinionated, I would say that particular form should be deleted and removed from Skyslope. The representation agreement that you want to use in Skyslope is called an engagement agreement, and it is, but that is a CAB form. I personally, since I'm in California, download every time I do anything, I use actual CAB forms because I'm the director of the forms committee, and because we're constantly updating those forms. And so what is in Skyslope is not necessarily updated to the most recent version of CAB. So I always use the current forms. But I would say if you have an association, if you belong to like a Texas Association of Business Brokers, or I think in the Carolinas, there's the Carolinas and Virginia Association of Business Brokers. If they have forms that are available in your state or for your state area, for your region, probably use those because they're designed to be compliant with the laws in your region. And if not, if you're going to use the forms that are in Skyslope, I would imagine that EXP has had their attorney kind of review them, or they wouldn't put them out there for national use. So, but just understand that they initially were created for California. So.
I found that out when I was doing a buyer disclosure and it still had Cal BRE in the signature line. So, yeah. I had no idea. If you guys, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Trans World exclusive listing agreement, but you'd be so jealous if you did because it's 2 pages long.
John, you said you muted yourself and then you said something else and I didn't hear it.
Oh, I wish our exclusive listing agreement was 2 pages as well. Because ours, it's very involved, the one we have. And I get it, don't get me wrong, but after seeing what trans worlds look like, I'm just wondering why we couldn't streamline one the same way,
Well, that's part of my question too. Like, if we're required to use the EXP forms to be covered by E&O, otherwise it's our $85 million at risk, well, we better use their forms. But like what Dick and I are doing, we've got the Texas form now. We've got California forms. We don't have a Washington Business Brokers Association yet, although we might start one. But we're just going to go hobble our own together and take, we won't make it purely a cut and paste because of copyright laws, but we're just going to try to put the best one together that we can. One of the courses that we took, it's one of the required courses, maybe you guys have taken it too. It's that, I think it's a 107 course on law from IBBA. And there's all these warnings in there about, what to make sure you put in the listing agreement. And this guy has learned over the years that he needs to put everything in there because what if this happens or what if that happens? So we're trying to put together a fairly comprehensive form. And maybe we could share it with our group, but ours isn't the definitive form either. Ours just works for us, as long as we don't get crosswise with the company for having our own version.
would say, if you're going to create a version of a form, and it's specifically for Washington, then I would just send it to Jim and, ask him or whoever. I'm sure that EXP Commercial also has, or EXP World Holdings has a legal department. But if you're going to be using a form for Washington, what I would do is send it to them, ask them to approve it, to review it and approve it, and then put it in the Washington folder instead of in the national forms. So ask them to create under Washington to create a business broker folder, and then start putting in forms that are going to be used when people are doing business in the state of Washington. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And by the way, as far as E&O goes, the only E&O policy I've ever seen for commercial had it was a $5 million policy plus another $5 million umbrella. So it had $10 million of coverage. I have heard rumors about an $85 million coverage. I have requested copies of the declaration page on multiple occasions and have never been provided with it. So I don't think it exists. I think it's something that maybe was being puffed a bit. And so I would not rely on that. I rely on what I've seen. And what I've seen is 10 million.
I think I have it, actually, because I went through the same thing and I got it. So let me try to find it.
All right, well, forward it to me. I'd love to see a copy of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it applies for the commercial real estate work that we're doing too. It just happens to also apply for business brokerage, as I understand it. But, I don't want to be sued in the first place. And if I do, I don't want to have to pay a copay. And if I do, of course, the copay is after tax money. So, it's a drag to go down that road. So we have to be so careful up front.